Hey everyone, welcome back to So Cultured. We are so excited to be back for season 7, and this
Yes.
season is called Twisted. So, this season is all about the dark side of science, the side of science that probably shouldn't have happened. Like, think of those experiments that sound like actual horror movies. I mean, I'm talking anything from human head transplants to people who thought they killed for science and just sinister experiments that should never have gone ahead. I don't know about you, Taz, but when I was doing specifically psychology A level, I learned about so many crazy experiments that I just thought, oh my God, like how did they ever get ethical approval for these? Or just how did these experiments ever go ahead?
No, literally. The history of science is honestly full of gruesome, terrifying stories, and we are going to tell them all this season. So if you like your science with a side of, wait, what the hell did I just hear? This season is for you. And obviously, we're still bringing back the laboraTEAAA because it's one of your favorite parts of the show, and we've already got some really wild stories lined up, but we're always on the lookout for more. So if you've got a story from the lab or your work, use the anonymous link in the description to spill your laboraTEAAA.
Yes, I'm very excited to see if this season's laboratory tops last season, because last season was like,
Oh my
I think our
gosh.
craziest season. Yeah, I mean, some of the stories we got were absolutely mental. So I'm excited to see what the
Insane.
listeners are bringing to the show this season. Now, this episode, we are going to be talking all about human head transplants, which is crazy. But I just had to start this season with this topic because it is insane. But before we get into that, while we were gone, something insane happened to Taz, and I have been so excited for her to tell you guys. So, Taz, you need to
Uh,
tell the listeners what happened to you in our break.
yeah, something exciting happened, and I went on holiday and I came back with a bit of extra baggage, and that extra baggage was a ring on my finger.
Oh my God, honestly,
The
guys, when
fiance.
the Taz messaged me, I can't even remember what you said to me. Did you say like I need to talk to you or something? There was a reason
I think I
that
just like FaceTimed you with no context.
I remember was I in the middle of fake tanning? I don't know. I was doing something in my bathroom. I was doing my lip liner. That's what it was. And Taz rings me, and I was like, why is she ringing me out of the blue? I thought, oh my God, like she never rings me out of the blue because we always like schedule our calls because of the time difference. Like we always have to schedule what time we're going to talk. And she just rang me out of the blue, and I was like, oh my God, like, is she okay? What's gone wrong? And she was just like, oh, I've got some news to tell you. And I was like, oh my God. And you looked so upset, and I thought it was going to be bad news. And then she was just like, showed me the ring, and oh my God, my jaw literally dropped. I was like, oh
It
my
dropped
God.
on
I
the
was not
floor.
expecting it at all. Pop off,
Really?
Kieran. We love this.
There were some people who were like, I knew it, or like, finally. And then you were
Finally.
just like, oh my God, what the fuck?
No, I was speechless. I was speechless.
Yeah. So exciting. So she's fiance, guys, soon to be
I'm
a
glad to see that you've
wifey.
got the ring on.
Well, I put it on purposely for the episode. If
Love
you
that.
like work in labs and stuff, or if you're a nurse or a doctor, you know how annoying it is to like have rings on your finger, like under the glove. So I actually generally don't wear it to work. And I'm also scared I'm like going to take it off and lose it. So it generally stays at home, like on the little jewelry tray until I'm like going out or like the weekend, things
There
like
must
that.
be a
So
hack for that though. I feel like one of our listeners must have a hack for you because I don't know.
mm,
There must be a way to stop it from ripping your glove, like something you can put over it, or like I don't know.
it's more just the fact that it's kind of uncomfortable under the glove than
Okay,
like it could rip it, it could, but it's more just the fact that it's like kind of restrictive under the glove.
yeah. Well, if any of the listeners have any hacks for our new fiance,
Yeah, let me
send them
know.
to her. But yes, let's get into the first episode of Twisted season 7.
Yay! I'm so excited.
Welcome to the So Cultured podcast,
where we explore science and tech unfiltered.
We're your hosts, Liv and Taz, two girls who love STEM and spilling the tea.
Each season, we take on a new theme, whether it's busting conspiracy theories, celebrating women in STEM, or breaking down the science in your favourite sci-fi films.
And of course, in every episode, we spill the laboraTEAAA,
where we share your wildest stories from the world of science.
Let's get into this week's episode of So Cultured. In 2015, Dr. Sergio Canavero, a man who looks unsettlingly exactly like the villain in every medical horror film ever. I'm being serious. My personal opinion.
Put a picture on now.
I'll put a picture on screen now. He announced that he was going to perform a human head transplant, and not in theory. Like literally, this is exactly what he wanted to do. As in, he wanted to take one person's head, cut it clean off, and stitch it onto someone else's body. Now, surgeons all over the world were literally thinking, oh my God, is he being serious? And he was. He said that he had already figured out how to reattach a severed spinal cord, and he just needed a volunteer. So, enter Valery Spirodonov, a Russian programmer with spinal muscular atrophy. He is completely paralyzed from the neck down. And he basically said, if you can give me a new body, do it. So the plan was to cool him until his skin turned grey, then slice through his neck like he was a science fiction prototype, hook his arteries up to another man's, glue the spinal cord together with something that sounded suspiciously like craft supplies. Yeah, we'll get into that soon. And then keep him in a coma until the neurons decided to talk again. Sounds totally fine, right? Well, the world watched in horror as the headlines rolled in. And I don't know, maybe some of our listeners will remember these headlines because they were from about 8 to 9 years ago. But quite literally, some of the headlines were talking about how Valerie was literally about to become a modern Frankenstein experiment.
What on earth? I feel like I'm going to need Botox after this season because my face is literally going to be like so screwed up the whole time with like disbelief.
Accurate.
But yeah, what the hell? I'm kind of like speechless at that because there's just so many flaws to it in my opinion. Like I was going to say in my head, lol. Pardon the pun.
There might be many head jokes in this episode.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about this. I'm just a bit like, surely not. Probably like all the other surgeons in the world. So you're basically telling me that this guy actually tried to make Frankenstein real, because that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, so the story of Frankenstein has always been about science going too far, which is why I kind of had to start this episode, because that is like the whole theme for this season. And Dr. Sergio Canavero didn't seem too bothered by that comparison because people actually compared him to Frankenstein all the time. His mission, he said, was to give the paralyzed a new chance at life. But when your plan involves removing someone's head, even the medical world started literally calling it is what it is, playing God. But the story of head transplants didn't start in 2015, and it certainly didn't start with Sergio. It started almost 2 centuries earlier with lightning, corpses, and a dead frog. Now, we've actually talked about Luigi Galvani before on the podcast. I don't know if you guys remember. I can't remember what episode it was, but I just remember you guys taking the piss out of me because I think I said he was a physicist or a physiologist. I don't know. But I just remember there being a whole joke about Luigi Galvani. So anyway, some of our listeners might remember him. But he is an Italian physiologist whose experiments in the 1780s revealed that electricity could make muscles move. So the reason I'm telling you all of this is because what a lot of people don't know is that Frankenstein's story was actually inspired by real experiments, and some of those experiments were Galvani's. So he revealed that electricity could make muscles move. So he was studying how nerves communicate with muscles, and so he dissected frogs and used metal instruments to probe their tissues. Now, he found that when 2 different metals touched a nerve and a muscle at the same time, the leg contracted, which was caused by bioelectricity. So essentially, the metals created a small electrical current that passed through the tissue, which triggered the same response that a living nerve signal would. But in the 18th
Mm.
century, this looked almost supernatural because people didn't quite understand it. So people were like, oh my God, like he's bringing this frog back to life using this metal instrument. So to the public, it seemed as though Galvani had discovered the secret of life itself, proof that electricity could reanimate dead flesh. So his findings ended up sparking decades of scientific fascination and just public horror. And when a young writer named Mary Shelley later heard about these experiments, she imagined what would happen if someone pushed that idea further. So, not just twitching a leg, but bringing an entire body back to life. And that is where the story of Frankenstein was actually born.
My gosh. I mean, I kind of assume, well, actually, no, I didn't assume. Had no idea where the origin of Frankenstein came from.
Yeah, I
So
guess you
that's
don't
actually
really
quite
think about it.
interesting. No. And I feel like maybe we'll cover it quite a lot on this season, but I feel like a lot of myths or weird spooky things are actually rooted in scientific experiments, or there's a scientific basis behind it. So yeah, that's really
Yeah.
interesting.
I guess we're gonna find out on this season. I'm so curious, like, yeah, if is there more, like you say, spooky stories or things that are inspired by actual experiments? Because yeah,
Mm,
electricity, like back in that time, was thought of as kind of like the cutting edge of life sciences. The same way I guess that
mm.
like gene editing or AI is now for us. And
That's crazy.
yeah, and 2 centuries later, scientists were kind of still chasing that same question, which was like, could you really bring life back to the lifeless, or like could you bring people back from the dead? Only now they weren't using lightning, they were using scalpels.
It's actually crazy how far science has come, like to think about like electricity as being, I don't know, cutting edge science, to now thinking about what we're doing, like you said, gene editing, AI, all that sort of stuff. So that kind of
Mhm.
like, hear me out for a second, because when you think about kind of organ transplants, they're just normal now. So like, whilst a head transplant sounds literally insane, I'm sure people probably thought the same thing about like a heart transplant once. So it kind of makes sense to think that science might go in that direction in the future. But yeah,
Yeah, no, 100%. That is like a good point. I always think that, like, imagine the first person to have a heart transplant. Like, people must have been
I
like, oh my God, you're
know.
crazy for doing that. Like, why are you doing that? Do you know what I mean? Like, I would not be the
Yeah.
first person to volunteer. But the
No.
first successful organ transplant didn't actually happen until around 1954, so way on from Galvani. And it was actually a kidney transplanted between identical twins. And the reason it worked is because obviously their DNA was identical. So the recipient's immune system didn't obviously reject the kidney. Before that, every attempt had failed because the body saw the new organ as a foreign invader and destroyed it. So that breakthrough was the first time that science kind of like cheated death in a really visible way. And then over the next decade, transplants went from impossible to inevitable. So we saw transplants with livers, lungs, even hearts. After this, like obviously, then these transplants became quite commonplace. But I feel really that like medicine crossed another line. And I don't say that in a negative way, but I have a crazy story for you. So buckle up because this is really sad. And like I said, it is a crazy story.
Oh.
But imagine it's November 2005. We are in northern France. And we're talking about a woman called Isabelle Denoir. And she lived in what she described as a little cocoon. Like her life was like a little cocoon. She worked in a clothes shops. She raised her 2 daughters and she lived with her mother. But that year, she had what she described as like a really bad week with lots of different personal problems. And one night, it got to the point where she kind of felt like she had to take a mix of pills. So basically, she took an overdose on these sleeping pills, and obviously, she like fell asleep. She went unconscious, and she was lying there for quite a few hours. And she woke up a few hours later on the kitchen floor, and her dog Tanya was sitting beside her. And Isabel, once she woke up, she didn't really know how long she'd been unconscious and she didn't feel any pain. She just kind of felt like a little bit confused. So she wakes up, she goes to get up, and she went to light a cigarette. But as she was trying to put the cigarette in her mouth, it kept falling out of her mouth. And so she was kind of like she knew something was wrong. Something felt wrong. Obviously, the cigarette keeps on falling out of her mouth. So she walks to the bathroom and she looks at herself in the mirror. Now, at first, she said she couldn't make sense of what she was seeing. And when she was looking in the mirror, she thought it was someone else. And this is when she realized that her nose, lips, and part of her chin were gone. And she later
What?
said, I realized I wasn't in a dream. I literally didn't have a face anymore. So what had happened is that when she had fallen unconscious, her dog had walked into the room and found her unconscious. Now, her dog had started to panic. It felt confused. It was trying to wake her up because Tanya like literally wasn't waking up. So the dog starts to panic, and in its state of panic, it started pouring at her face, and it actually mauled her face. So it bit her chin off.
Oh my
It
God.
bit her cheeks, her lips. And Isabel afterwards said Tanya hadn't attacked her, but she just believed that Tanya had panicked, and that's how she ended up kind of like clawing and biting at her to try and wake her up. But by the time Isabel's daughter and mother had arrived home, the damage was literally catastrophic. So she wore a mask to cover the injuries, and when she didn't, she kept a plaster over the bone that showed through like her missing nostril. She was fed through a tube because she couldn't swallow properly, and she said that saliva leaked from her mouth constantly because she had no lips to hold it in, which is truly like just terrifying and so sad. And this is the point where doctors made a decision that no one had ever made before. And that decision was to give her a new face. So they performed the first ever face transplant. Now, this operation lasted 15 hours, and it said that teams worked in silence, mapping every vessel and nerve before severing and restitching them. Dozens of microsutures reconnected arteries thinner than a thread, and the tissue had to regain blood flow within minutes or it would literally die. Now, when they finally removed the clamps, colour began to return to her face, so the pale tissue kind of began to flush pink again. And this is kind of when they knew that the transplant was a success. And I will put pictures of Isabel kind of before and after the face transplant on the screen so you guys can see what a face transplant looks like. It's like a skin graft, right? Like you can tell that it's not like you wake up with a completely
It's
new,
grafted on.
perfect. Exactly. But the transplant was a success, and Isabel can now smile again, she can eat again, and she can even feel like the wind on her cheek. But the world really wasn't sure what to feel about this first ever face transplant, and photographs of her new face appeared everywhere, and people didn't see like triumphs. There was a lot of people who didn't like look at these photos and think, oh my god, this is amazing. A lot of people kind of thought it was this is not my opinion, but a lot of people kind of thought it was like really weird, like the idea that someone could wake up wearing quote unquote another person's face. And a lot of people just kind of felt like this was wrong. But me personally, like I think it's incredible.
Yeah, that is crazy to kind of wake up with someone else's face, isn't it? I feel like this probably would have required like an extra level of acceptance from like the donor's family, because I feel like it's almost maybe a little bit grating if they're confronted with like someone they loved on face on someone else.
Well, I guess it's like, it's not really like when we think about, okay, so this is what I think is so crazy about a head transplant is when you think about a head transplant, it's like, sorry to be graphic, but like clean cut off of the head, like decapitate, put the head on someone else. So like you would literally look at that person, like say you were a head donor. I could be walking down the street and I'm like, oh my god, there's Taz, but Taz is dead. Why is Taz in the road?
No,
do you know what
but
I mean?
you
Like,
wouldn't. No, it wouldn't be that way around, though, would it?
what
Because
do
the
you
head
mean?
would still be me.
I
It would
don't
be
know.
a
It's
body
all so
donor for the head.
confusing. Actually, this is a good point. Like a lot of people were like, technically, it's not a head transplant. Technically, it's a body transplant. But anyway,
Yeah.
but with a face transplant, I guess it's not really like that, is it? It's not like you cut off the face and then put it on someone. It's more like skin grafts and things like that, I think,
Yeah.
right? The whole thing that kind of scared people is that they knew that if scientists knew that they could like move a face, then maybe the next step is going to be that they want to move a head. And this is where the horror really gets real. But to really understand how we even get close to the idea of a head transplant, we need to go back to the 1950s, because there is this Soviet surgeon called Vladimir Demikov. And whilst he wasn't exactly doing head transplants, he was doing something alarmingly close. So,
Oh gosh.
Demikov's obsession was circulation. So, at the time, nobody had managed to transplant a living organ and keep it working. So he wanted to prove that if you could hook up the arteries and veins of two bodies perfectly, then any piece of tissue could, in theory, survive on a new host. So he started by moving hearts and lungs between dogs, and he was experimenting with different ways to connect blood vessels so that they wouldn't clot. And those operations worked just long enough for him to get bolder. And that's when he came up with his most infamous idea, the two-headed dog. Yeah, I'm being serious. Like, you heard that right, two-headed dog. So he took a small dog or puppy and he surgically grafted its head, shoulders, and front legs onto the neck and chest of a larger dog, carefully connecting their blood vessels so they shared the same bloodstream. Somehow, this actually worked, at least briefly. So both heads could actually blink, lick, and even drink milk or water. The smaller dog would lap water that spilled from the larger dog's throat because their digestive tracts weren't connected. And usually they survived a few days, or like sometimes even a week. I think the longest they survived was 28 days.
I love how you're saying this as if he did it like multiple times.
Oh, he did. He did do it multiple times.
That is so gross. And I feel so bad for those poor dogs.
Honestly, like the ethics, like how, I mean, ethics clearly didn't exist then. But yeah, like,
No.
besides from this being like super terrifying, I mean, this is obviously like severe animal abuse. Like, it's horrific. It is horrific.
Yeah.
Another crazy story. So if we fast forward 20 years, we do meet someone who actually did want to perform a head transplant, and that was Dr. Robert White. Now, he was an American neurosurgeon working in the 1970s. And his idea is that if you could keep a brain supplied with oxygenated blood, you could, in theory, move consciousness itself into a new body. So he performed his most infamous operation in 1970, where he transplanted the head of one rhesus monkey onto the body of another. So he actually did do a head transplant on a monkey. The monkey actually woke up, it blinked. They found that it was actually tracking people with its eyes, but the body below the neck never moved. So the spinal cord couldn't be reattached, and so the brain had no control over the body. And so the head lived for about 8 days before rejection started to set in. Now, fast forward another 40 years, here is obviously where we meet Dr. Sergio Canavero, aka Dr. Frankenstein. So as I said at the start of the episode, he is an Italian neurosurgeon who in the mid 2010s announced he was planning the world's first human head transplant. And he even gave his project a name. So this man is like prepared for this. He's not just like, yeah, I fancy doing it, like could be cool. He's like got a full-on plan. So the name for his project is Heaven, which stood for Head Anastomosis Venture.
Well, I think that is wild calling it heaven. I feel like that's just rage bait, isn't it?
This is exactly what I thought when I read it. I was like, what do you mean it's called Heaven? Like, it's giving rage bait. Like, it is. Because
and nothing about that is heaven, honestly.
And it's like, it stood for Head Anastomosis Venture. Like, yeah, I think he's rage baiting. It's a bit of a reach, like, because surely you'd call that have, not heaven.
Yeah.
So he's definitely rage baiting. Anyway, I think this plan literally sounds like something straight out of science fiction. Like, this should be in Exposed season 3, honestly.
Yeah.
So the plan was that you would have 2 operating tables side by side. One side has the body donor and then one side has the recipient. So both bodies would be cooled to about 10 degrees to slow their metabolism. And then surgeons would sever both spinal cords simultaneously and then use something called polyethylene glycol, which I Googled and like read about, and it is actually like a real thing. But he basically wanted to use it as kind of like a neural glue to fuse the nerve endings together. So, in theory, he thinks this would allow the new brain to reboot the new body. And Canavera's team actually even rehearsed the procedure in 2017 on cadavers in China. And he claimed that it was a success. And he said they'd managed to reattach the spine, the blood vessels, and the nerves. But all I was thinking this whole time is like, really, there's no way to know if it actually worked, right? Because those connections would never actually work because they were cadavers. These people were dead, they'd passed away. And the biggest problem, I think, is that to attempt this on a living person, you'd actually obviously need a living donor body, right? Like you need someone who's been declared brain dead, but whose heart and organs are still actually functioning. And so the timing, consent, and ethical approval that you'd actually need for something like that is more complicated than any other transplant that has ever been attempted.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is fairly normal for people to be like obviously strapped up to machines and like dependent on a ventilator because they are unfortunately brain dead. So I feel like that happens a lot more often than you think. But yeah, to be able to line that up with the recipient and the whole process of like, I don't know, cooling them down and I don't know, yeah, that's insane to think logistically how that would even happen. Can't wrap my head around it, pardon the pun.
Not another head pun.
Oh gosh.
Sorry. Oh, so immature. But no, I do agree with you. Like, yeah, the whole ethical approval is the biggest thing for me, and just finding someone like willing. But I mean, as we said at the start of the episode, Sergio did actually manage to find someone who volunteered to be the guinea pig, and his name, as we said, was Valery Spirodonov. And as I said at the start, he was a Russian computer scientist, and he had spinal muscular atrophy, which is a genetic condition that slowly destroys muscle strength. For him, Canavera's idea wasn't horror, it actually felt like hope. And he said, I'm not afraid to die, but I'm afraid to live my whole life in this body. But in a twist of events, he actually ended up meeting a woman, and forgive me, but I forgot her name, but she was a chemical engineer, and he actually ended up meeting her. And they've done some interviews together, and she's basically talking about how she doesn't want the operation to go ahead and she doesn't want him to do it. I think she must have convinced him to not go ahead because he actually ended up backing out of the operation, and instead he's kind of like found this new purpose in advocating for accessible technology instead of chasing a new body. So now there is nobody currently that I know of willing to actually have a head transplant.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. I mean, I think it's obviously sad that someone's got to such a dark point in their life that they're like willing to kind of sacrifice themselves, because realistically it probably wasn't going to work, and if it did, it probably wouldn't have been any better a life. Well, definitely wouldn't have been a better life than what he's currently experiencing, in my opinion anyway.
100%.
But I was also thinking, when you're talking about after rejection, what would be rejected? Would his head be attacked by the immune system, or would the body be attacked? Like, which bit would be attacked? Because imagine if your head is grafted onto someone else. It must be the body attacks the head, which is probably the worst possible scenario, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, where does that start?
I guess
where does...
Well, I guess your immune cells like originate from your bone marrow. So...
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the spine of the whole other person.
What would that look like? Like, what would it look like for a head to be rejected?
Yeah, I think it would be like it would start off like really inflamed. So like, I don't know, imagine you like cut yourself and you like had an infected wound on your leg and it goes like red and like swollen. I reckon it would go like red, swollen, and then like...
Sorry, guys. That is actually giving me the shivers.
I feel like you would probably have neurological effects as well. Like if it was in your head, you'd probably have like swelling on the brain and stuff. So you'd probably like pass away from that rather than like tissue dying, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Or like the tissue would be damaged because it would be attacked by the immune system. So neurologically, you'd probably have problems and then pass away because of that, rather than like, I don't know, physical skin tissue dying. I don't know. That's my take anyway.
Cannot explain how uncomfortable this is making me. My head is like tingling. My eyes feel like they're watering because I'm just thinking about like someone else's head peeing on your body. Like, oh, I don't know. It's actually
your
making my
head
head
being
hurt.
on someone else's.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I feel
my gosh.
more weird about my head being on someone else's and having someone else's body below me than someone else using my body.
I mean, it depends whose body I'm going on. Do you know what I mean? Like, do they have bigger boobs than me? Because if so, yeah, put me there. Put me there.
What if me and you just swapped?
Mate,
I don't
that
have
would be
bigger
so
boobs
different.
than you, though. Sorry. We're both small titty committee girlies.
I think for us, the weirdest thing would be the height difference. Like, you would see,
Oh my God,
I'd see life in a whole new
100%.
perspective. Like, I'd be like, oh my God, like, I'd probably see all this dust on top of my like cabinets. I'd be like, oh my God, I need some dust up there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just always think this, like, if I stand on a chair, I'm like, I really can see life in a whole new perspective.
Yeah,
here.
for sure. I've like bent down to hug you before and definitely had the thought of like, Jesus, this is what you are seeing all the time. Talking about like mind-body connection and stuff. Would the person, like if you had a head transplant and it worked, would the person be still considered themselves? That's my question.
That is like a really big question, and it's a question that like a lot of people have thought about and spoke about, because yeah, even if you could keep the brain alive, identity isn't just about like neural signals like we just spoke about. It's like the body that you inhabit, the way your senses map to it. And people say that a sudden mismatch between brain and body would actually cause like medically like identity shock, which is where the brain literally fails to recognize the new body as its own. And I guess that's before you even get to like immune rejection, like we spoke about, which could destroy the graft long before recovery. But the truth is that despite decades of research, no technology today can actually fully reconnect spiral neurons. So we can attach blood vessels, we can preserve organs and keep a brain alive for a time, but we can't yet restore the wiring that makes a body move or feel, as we spoke about in this episode. So for now, the head transplant remains exactly what it has always been and what I think it should always be, which is an operation planned in theory, rehearsed on cadavers, but never actually possible. So these days, almost everyone in mainstream medicine has walked away from the idea of actually ever doing a full head transplant. And even Sergio, the man behind this big plan, still gives the occasional interview claiming that he is close to being able to do it, but no hospital, no ethics board, and no government has ever approved it. And his former collaborator in China still runs animal studies, but they're focused on spinal cord repair, not actual head swapping. And so the real progress now is happening in labs working on stem cell grafts, neural scaffolds, and brain machine interfaces. So whilst the history of the science of like head transplants and how we got to the point where someone actually thought, oh my God, let's do an actual head transplant is really, really interesting. Thankfully, it is something that has kind of been left alone for now. But anyway, that rounds off the first episode of season 7, Twisted. I am already like, I'm so excited to see what you're going to bring us in next week's episode, Taz. But for now, I think it's about time we get into our first laboraTEAAA of the season. I am so excited to hear these stories because I've missed it. So let's get into it.
Okay, so today's laboraTEAAA starts with the subject line of my lab mate reported me for being unprofessional because I didn't share a bed with him. Oh. Okay.
What?
Into this.
No, this already sounds ridiculous. Yeah,
Sus.
what does that mean?
Hi, girls. I'm absolutely loving your podcast. I recently discovered it and I'm honestly binging all the episodes during my microscopy time and lab sessions. I have a story about my time at a conference. It's a long story. Sorry. We love the long stories. Do not be
We
sorry.
love them.
Okay, let me quickly introduce the people involved. Myself, female, 28 years old, doing a PhD, and I'm in my 4th year. I'm doing stem cell biology. My PI, let's call him Henry, and my colleague, let's call him Gavin. He's doing a PhD too for around 7 years. Oh, Jesus.
Ooh,
He got a permanent
Jesus.
contract a couple years ago, which is why he's not in a rush to finish his PhD anytime soon. Already red flag. Just get that PhD done.
Savage.
Okay. Okay. So me and 3 of my colleagues, aka Gavin and 2 girls, went on a multi-day conference. Henry had booked the Airbnb, but he wasn't going, and there was supposed to be 4 beds. Turns out there were only 3. We didn't want to share with Gavin, obviously, and one of the girls had a presentation, so we gave her the other bed. So me and the other girl were sharing a bed. The week went on, and I went to a bar one night and came home somewhat late. Just FYI, my colleagues are a little bit boring because they were not willing to go out, but I didn't miss any of the sessions during the conference, so in my eyes, there's no problems there. I agree, girl. That's what conferences are all about. They're all about the drinking afterwards and then turning up to the conference hungover as fuck the next day. So I'm with you there because no conference has ever gone any other way for me. And too right, we've got to have our fun. So it is of note, apparently, for the story to say that I am not a morning person, and this conference started at the ungodly hour at 8:15 a.m. I love how this listener is typing it. That is so funny because I agree.
Hell no. That is an
Why not
ungodly
just
hour.
start at 9? Like, work starts at 9.
Anything work related, like if it starts before 9, I'm not going. I simply would not be there. I wouldn't be there.
No.
I'll turn up at 9 and I miss the first talk, and I don't care.
So she goes on to say, at this point, I slept 2 nights next to my colleague, and it was a bit uncomfortable, but doable. My boyfriend, with whom I lived together, was also at the same conference and had a hotel room for himself. What? Why didn't you just sleep with him?
Anyway. Why didn't you go to her? Why didn't you go together?
Oh, wait, thing says, so I decided to sleep in his room for the remaining nights, and I considered this to be a win-win situation. I would be more comfortable, and my colleague would have the bed and the room for herself as well. Yeah, I agree. Fine. All is well, and we arrive back in the office, and Gavin asks me if I have time to have a one-on-one talk with him. He accuses me of being extremely unprofessional because I stayed up too late and had a hangover the next morning. I supposedly missed a lot of sessions during the conference. Both statements not true. Okay. I enjoyed the social aspect of the conference too much, but most of all, I was unprofessional because I slept in the same bed as my boyfriend.
Huh?
What? How is that unprofessional? That's just a bit. We're all adults here. I'd understand if you were like at school, but you're not.
Yeah.
And also, like, there's nothing wrong with turning up to a conference hungover. I'm telling you now, half the people that attend these conferences are hungover, if not like 70% of them.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's like you can turning up hungover, you're doing it right.
You can feel the energy change in day 1 versus day 2. Like day 1, everyone's like raring to go, like. You know what I mean? Like the coffee station's pretty empty. Like you haven't got a queue for your coffee. Everyone's excited. Like, yeah, what are we doing? Like, what's the plans for dinner? And then the next day is like zombies. Like, and the queue for the coffee is like insane. Everybody's tired. The energy is just like there's a change.
Flat.
And it's because everybody's hungover.
Yeah, 100%. And also, if it's like a 3-day conference and your talk is the last session of the 3rd day, you bet your bottom dollar no one is going to be there because everyone's hungover.
No one.
They all want to go home. They're all done listening to talk after talk after talk. Like, yeah, everyone's just done by that point. And if they are there, then they're probably falling asleep in the corner. So,
right, can I make my call right now? Because I don't know where this story is going. But my call right now is that Gavin fancies her, and Gavin's fuming that she left the lab Airbnb to go with her boyfriend. This is my call.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just making it right now, okay?
Yeah, it's kind of giving jealous, and also like the fact that she was going out and having fun and then like still making it to the conference the next day. It's like it's giving you are just like moping around in your like Airbnb room, just jealous of
Exactly. Like, if you're going to
the
be boring,
listener.
like, be happy about being boring, because I've been pretty quiet when you were saying about going out, because when I go to conferences, I am the boring one, but I'm pretty comfortable in my boringness. And like, I'm not shitting on anybody who wants to go and have fun. You guys go, but I'm going to go back to my hotel room and chill. And I'm pretty comfortable with that. So, Gavin, if you're going to be boring, be happy with being boring, or don't be boring. Simple
But
as.
let's put it this way, Liv, if me and you happen to go to the same conference, would you still be boring?
Well, no, because you're there. Do you know what I mean? But like, after, if you want me to be real honest, like I'm being honest, most of the time when I go to conferences, there's not many people there that I like.
Yeah.
To be
Well, I
honest,
think that's the
like I
crux of
don't.
the situation,
This
right?
is it. Like I don't. I'm sorry, but there's not many people that I like, and I want. It's not that I don't like them. Like I do like them. I take that back. I take it back. I like them. They're lovely people. But do I want to like hang out with them and drink with them? No, because I don't want to hang
Mm,
out and drink with people at the best of times, let alone at a work
yeah.
conference. But if you were
Yeah.
there, yeah, babe, we're hitting the town.
We're hitting the town and we're turning up hungover the next day.
Yeah, 100%. And we're
Okay,
missing the
let's.
last talk.
Yeah, we're missing the last talk. It's Aperol happy hour at that point. That's all I'm
Exactly.
saying. Okay. This talk completely blindsided me and I felt super overwhelmed. So I felt that the best thing I could do was remove myself from this situation. I got my stuff, walked off, and worked in another office for the rest of the day. But before that, I went to Henry, my supervisor, and I told him what happened, and I thought it was unacceptable. He said he did not want to be the dad of two fighting kids that were mature enough to solve it ourselves. Another conversation happened between me and Gavin. I tried to tell him why it bothered me so much that I felt it was not his place to say these things. He did not apologize, and the conversation ended with him saying, I hope you take this feedback for the next conference and improve your attitude and behavior. Sorry, you're both PhD students. Why is he talking to you like he's the superior one?
Please,
What?
why? Please.
Don't tell
If I
me
was
what
her,
to do.
I'll be acting it out at the next conference. You thought that was bad. Watch what I'm gonna do this time around. I don't know what I'm gonna do,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna annoy you. Like, what a jealous man. What a jealous man. That's all I have to
I just
say.
don't even know who gives him the authority to be like, you are unprofessional. According
In it,
to
and
who?
talking
Because
about like,
you're a
oh,
PhD student as well. Like, don't talk to me about being unprofessional.
literally, and talking about like, oh, if I had a partner, Gavin, you wouldn't have a partner because this is how you think you can talk to people, and like you think you have this type of authority over people. Shut up. Like,
Well, it sounds
sorry.
like he does have a partner. Oh, wait, maybe he
Does
doesn't.
he?
I
I
don't
don't think he
know.
does. I don't. Wait, if he does, she should break up with him because he's in love with this girl. Let me tell you. Because why else are you so bothered by her life and what she's doing?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
for
so
what
weird.
reason? I understand. Like, the only thing I'm kind of like, okay, is I'm thinking they've booked the Airbnb as a lab group. This is a lab bonding experience, and like they wanted to go there as a lab and like spend time together as a lab.
Yeah.
Sorry, how many times do I want to say lab? So he's annoyed that she's left that dynamic, but she didn't leave because of nothing. She left because there was literally not a bed. And I'm sorry, but I don't even particularly enjoy sharing a bed with my best friend. I don't want to share
Yeah.
a bed with someone from my lab. No, I'd be
Also,
the first one to get out there and book a hotel.
as we said, literally in this whole conversation that we've had, as soon as we found out her boyfriend was there, we were like, why are you not sleeping at his? And obviously, it turned
Literally.
out she was, because, like,
Mhm.
that is the most obvious thing to do.
And that's what I'm saying. It's kind of giving, like, I think she spent a few days to be
Yeah,
in the
she
lab
tried her
spirit.
best. Yeah.
Yeah, but then was like, no, I'm not comfortable with this anymore. And now I'm going to go somewhere I'm
Also,
more
like, if
comfortable
you're
with.
being the sociable one and, like, going out and, like, almost like networking with other people, like, in other labs, and then your lab is being boring and just staying at the Airbnb, then not only is that, like, fair enough. But also, like, you're not going to want to go back to the Airbnb if, like, they've all got early nights and you're, like, traipsing in
Right.
at, like, 2 a.m. Like,
It's
I
giving
wouldn't want to
like
do
when you've
that.
been solo traveling and like you have to. I remember when I was solo traveling in Europe and I was in Ljubljana in Slovenia, and I went out and I got like so drunk one night with these random people. Probably not my best decision I've made in life. Anyway, I had to go back into my hostel and like everybody was
Yeah.
asleep and I had to climb up to the top bunk and I was like so fucking drunk trying to climb up to the top bunk, like I'm knocking shit
Yeah, it's so
everywhere.
humbling.
That's what it's giving. Yeah.
Yeah. She actually did say at the end, this is the last point that she said, is the day after I heard the following from my other colleagues who were at the office when I walked out. They were, of course, wondering what happened. So Gavin told them, and this is in like quote, and this is in quote, I just told her that she enjoyed the social part of the conference too much and now she is hysterical. Hysterical. I hate that word.
Don't even. I can't even go there.
I'll be hysterical if you're going to call me hysterical. Like, I'll show you what hysterical means.
I'll show you hysterical. Right. My thing is that Gavin is jealous of her for several reasons. And honestly, I think what the listener needs to do is absolutely ignore him. I know it's easier said than done, but I am a true believer in the best thing you can do is just ignore someone. Just don't even respond. Don't acknowledge them because all he wants is some acknowledgement from you because he's jealous of you for several reasons. And so he like almost wants attention from you and he wants you to like do something that he can really be like, oh, look at her. She's hysterical. She's going crazy. She's this. Just ignore him. Literally just ignore him. Gavin, I'm not talking to you about this. This is, I'm just not. Like, I have better things to do than to talk to you about my behavior. You're not in charge of me. Like, I don't need to listen to it. Simple as that. That's what I would do.
It's giving narcissist, and she's basically doing better than he is in terms of like networking or just like, I don't know, clearly just doesn't want to be around Gavin, and he's really struggling with that, to come to terms with that.
Yeah,
and also struggling to come
right.
to terms with the fact that she's like going out, socializing, networking, doing all the things that he should also be doing as well, and then he's bringing her down by saying you're too social, or like, can't believe you went to your boyfriend's flat, you're so unprofessional. Like, he's trying to bring her down to her level because he's a narcissist.
You're
That's
so
what
good
I
at like
think.
analyzing people. Like, you know, like when I don't know, like you fall out with someone and like you go and tell your mum and then your mum just like drops a load of like knowledge that you're just like, oh my God, how did like you're that person. Like you are that person. I mean, I should already know this because when I tell you about
people, to be fair.
Yeah, I think you are. You definitely are. But do you think like I mean, that all makes sense to me apart from the boyfriend thing. Like, do you think he kind of fancied her? And that's not me saying that in like an immature way. Like, genuinely do.
Well, that could definitely be an option, but I also think it goes hand in hand with him trying to find an excuse to bring her down, because he was like, that's so unprofessional. Like, you just going to your boyfriend's house after your boyfriend's room after the conference. Like, it's kind of giving like, I don't know. He's using the word unprofessional to try and like bring her below his level in a way. And he's using that as the excuse. But it could also be that he is jealous of the boyfriend as well, for sure.
I'd love to know a little bit more about like their academic background in terms of like, is he potentially jealous of like your work? Are you like a high achiever within the lab? Like, I'd love to know that dynamic. Like, I can kind of imagine them two being the two who are kind of like low-key in competition. And like the supervisor, like Henry, he's like so done with it. He's like, these two are always like, you know, fighting for it. And maybe he's just like,
well, she actually gave a little bit more information, which I love, because
okay,
we always ask our listeners for all the info. And she did actually say that like there is a bit of like not rivalry, but like they seem to clash heads quite a bit. She said in group presentations in the lab, she'll be presenting stuff and she'll say something and he will just like outwardly say, that's not true in front of everyone, and she would then have to like carry on her like lab presentation after saying that. And I think that is so deep. Imagine calling someone out like that and being so bold with it as
Yeah.
well.
It's definitely given jealous, 100%. And as Tad said, like narcissist. So anyway, I think you absolutely just need to like do your best to ignore him. All he wants is for you to engage. And I know it's easier said than done, but I think there's something so powerful about ignoring someone who like so clearly desperately wants your attention and they want to annoy you.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I said it before and I'll say it again. The fact that he's been doing his PhD for 7 years is a red flag. And you're in your 4th year of your PhD. So you will be graduating. You'll say ta-ta with your like doctor's hat on, and he'll probably still be working at the same place. So do not worry, girl. And then he'll just be like in his narcissistic mind, like, oh my God. So that will be the cherry on the top, I think.
100%. I agree. That would be so iconic. So iconic.
Well, at least I feel like we haven't given like too many things for you to like go away and do, like not much advice, if that makes sense. But I feel like I hope we've kind of validated your feelings in the sense that we are 100% with you. I love going out at conferences, socializing, and if our boyfriends were in a hotel room, we would definitely be going back to that room afterwards.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, Taz's just got a ring on her finger.
There's a reason for this, guys. There's a reason.
But yeah, thank you so much for writing in, and thank you so much for all of the info, because we absolutely love it. If any of our other listeners are listening in and you guys feel like you have a similar story or a story that's completely different that you just want to get our thoughts, feelings, advice on, if you want Taz to psychoanalyze anyone, then you can click the anonymous link in today's episode or video description where you can submit your story completely anonymous. We do not get any of your information. So as we always say, go crazy. But for now, that wraps up episode 1 of season 7. So we will see you guys same time next week for episode 2 of Twisted. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I won't make it easy for you now. You got 2 minutes of my time, and